Right, so today, this slideshow has actually been 5 years in the making. And you might say, well, how comes that? And the reason is the content that's going to come, some of Albert Howarth's photographs, literally had to be unearthed and digitized, curated, cared for, to bring them to this stage. I'm going to tell the story of how they came about. Shouldn't make a presumption about everybody knowing who Albert Howarth was. Albert was a very familiar guy. If you were in the Litherland History Society, he was part founder member 25 years or so ago. He was a chap who lived just around the corner here, 2 Oxford Avenue. I got to know him largely through being a carer for him, as he had a serious stroke, and I started to look after him, basically just popping in every night after work, that kind of thing. And I'll tell the story of how the situation arose that I took his photographs. But the emphasis today is really on him as a photographer. He really had a 40-year career taking photographs, not just of Litherland, which many people are aware of from the Litherland History site, but also general subjects, and kind of an old-fashioned photographer, pretty dedicated to getting perfection kind of thing. You'll get to know who Albert was as we go through. Today's a little bit of a technical balancing act. We've got a new projector, brand new projector. We've also got a sound system which is going to be accompanying a movie that's going to be playing. I thought, what's the best way to show a lot of photographs together? It's not to try and go click, 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 because you get fed up. I put a lot of them faded into each other in a movie which lasts about 20 minutes, and that'll take us through his entire themes of his career. So today is about an appreciation of Albert. I've come to respect his photographs in the sense that he was trying for that perfection. A lot of it was unsung. I mean, maybe, he got his praises in his photographic societies attended. But it's deeper than that. It's not just about photographs. It's about, why do we do this? Why do we try and take a reflection on why we spend so much time trying to take this bunch of photos and somehow preserving them for the future. The purpose of it, the spoiler really is that without doing that, these photos would be lost forever, and there's some gems in there. Overall, though, it's a labour of love. It costs a lot of money to actually rescue these. But anyway, the point is that they do get rescued. So it is an emotional effort. I wouldn't say that it's a neutral thing at all. You have to put conscious effort in. And each night do a little bit. This is the dramatis personae, if I can say that. Albert's nuclear family. His dad, his mum, and Albert himself. His mum, who lasted to the grand old age of 102. I never met her. I kind of know her through the photographs now. And Albert himself, looking sprightly there. I suppose aged about 25, 30, something like that. I should mention that his dad, who you've just seen, was also a photographer. This is Albert Howarth Sr. And in fact, this photo came up on Litherland History Facebook site the other day as a picture of Ford Village and this mysterious pram in the picture. And it's transpired, I think it was you who told me, that that's Albert in there. And I connected the dots with some other photographs as well, taken a close-up of that pram, which you'll see in one of the movies coming up. And it's just a nice little story that he's obviously passed on the enthusiasm and possibly a camera or two to his son.
Is that Pure Lane?
No, that's Ford Village, so that's probably Ford Lane. We don't know the exact spot. So this is Albert's house, just around the corner there, 2 Oxford Avenue. He lived there all his life, all of his 86 years, which is remarkable, really. And I want you to spot later on when we start the movie sequence, there's a first frame. I might actually freeze frame on it. There's a picture of his mum in a pram just here by that door, which is a nice connection with the fact that I used to go to that house, obviously, and I'd often, because I knew that photo, and I'd often reflect on him being a little baby in that pram, and he was such a cute little guy when he was growing up, which you'll see. This is a talk about photography, and this was his kit. I've said it before, he invested in his photography. He didn't have rubbish. Anybody who did photography back in the 60s, 70s would know these brands were top-notch. Durst for enlargers, Rolly for slide projectors, Leica cameras. These were the price of a small car back then. And they're astronomical now. That's $4 or $5 for a camera like that. You know, say you would need a lot of dosh. But he put his money in, and it extended to the best quality photo stock as well. When I was doing my photography, I was on dirt cheap Farania colour, which, you know, all the people come out with orange heads. This was top-notch, paid for, developed by Kodak. That now costs about £38 a roll with developing. And it was commensurate then. It was expensive then. Professional photographers' film. So none of it was rubbish. He did really dedicate a lot of dosh to it. I mentioned that he was in the Litherland Photographic Society. I found from the next slide that he joined that in 1960. So that gives him a career of 30 to 40 years of snapping photographs. I would say never professionally. He was an amateur photographer, classic amateur photographer. These are his buddies who used to go to the LPS with. I think LPS was quite a friendly group. I can't necessarily say the same about Crosby, because they were much more competitive. I do remember sort of glimpsing them and deciding not to join. I did find this photo, which was a competition where they had a subject of 3. That's the kind of challenge that they used to have in those days. Used to say, bring us photographs on the subject of 3, and of course it give creative imagination, bring things together. On that particular photo, which actually illustrates rather well Albert's propensity to do abstract photography, we'll come to a section on that. It shows the winning picture. That was the 3 dandelion seed heads. Although I don't know what the significance of the eye is. This is all lost to time now. Nevertheless, that's in the record. He did win prizes. I first encountered Albert in 1975. That's me. When I was 16. I had just picked up a Practica LLC and I'd start, well, you can see on Litherland History some of the very early photographs I did. I thought that would be a good thing to go to that. It turned out for me to be very stuffy, very snooty, a bit old, if you know what I mean. I lasted 2 weeks. And I didn't even connect with Albert on this. But many, many years later, when I was going through all my photographs, I came across this photo. And I connected with the fact that there was a guy in the Litherland Photographic Society who had a Leica camera, which was just unbelievable to me. It's like having a Rolls Royce. And that was Albert. And Albert had gifted us. We went 1 week, he took that photo, he gave us everybody a print of it next week. He was probably acting as a teacher there, you know. So he was already passing on his skills. This is something I found in the archives, which just illustrates that he was a member at that point in 83. He was a member for 23 years. So this isn't just like a dabble. This is kind of a long-term commitment to the society. This general post is about his Litherland photographs, which of course is also pertinent today. We'll do a little section on Litherland photos right at the end. It says there, you know, he's got about 300 or 400 boxes. I don't know what that translates with numbers of slides, but roughly speaking, we have about 3,000 slides. I hasten to add, many are duplicates. So we don't have 3,000 individual pictures. We have a lot of pictures, occasionally just unique ones. But that he's talking about the same collection there. The point of the talk really is to explain the value of this collection and also its salvaging, because it very nearly all hit the bin. This next section is entitled Salvaging the Archive. That reality for many historical photographs is so sad, but it's true. So many good pictures just hit the bin because nobody's motivated enough to bring them together and title them and make sure that they're copied. And for whatever reason, they just get chucked out. And this is complete, utter tragedy for certainly for local historians. If you're squeamish, you can look away. But this next phase is I'm telling it how it was. This was me in 2020. And as I say, it was a brutal year. Not only was it COVID year, so to speak, but I was desperately ill separately. I had fatty liver disease, and I wasn't long for this planet. And it was during all of that that I heard that Albert had fallen ill himself. I wasn't able to see him because of this state. And I just asked my wife to kind of sort out communications. And by the time she was doing that, I'd heard he'd died. And he did, in fact, die April the 9th. His funeral was on 28th of April. There were 2 attendees.
Yeah.
Eileen and myself.
Only allowed 5.
You were only allowed 5. I can't remember the other people.
Yeah, one was the solicitor and the other 2 the neighbours.
Solicitor and neighbours, yeah. It was a very strange occasion, like most of that year. But that was that. He'd gone. And in fact, I just went back home and didn't think at all about photographs or anything. I was totally out of it. But I traced the date. On 26th of October 2020, I got a call on my mobile from his solicitor saying, we're doing the house clearance. Do you want to come and check if there's anything of interest? Because I had said to Albert to mention it to him. But of course, I wasn't in a real fit state. But the truth is, I got in the car, went round there. That was the scene. It was that horrible feeling of an empty house, as I used to know that house through Albert being there. The challenge was I had to find anything of value. I knew that much. So I looked around and I noticed, first thing I noticed is all his folders, which were stored in a box at the top of the stairs, gone. Already in the skip. Skip gone. So I started to panic a bit and just literally went in all rooms. In one of the bedrooms, there was a pile of stuff. Literally a pile of just looked a load of mess. I sorted through it and saw quite a few slides. I said, okay, I'll get them. So how I got them downstairs, I do not know. I was physically weak, literally got them in the car, and they went across to my house. And they stayed there in the drive for about 3 or 4 months. And it wasn't until I checked the dates again of that photo, I transferred them into my cellar, which again, not an ideal place for photographs, by the way, but they were out of the car because we needed the car. March 2021, and they stayed there for at least 2 years. The good news bit is that in December 2021, this is me in Birmingham Hospital with antlers on because somebody had given me Christmas antlers. That was Christmas Day, actually, 2021, with a new liver. Miracle of NHS. And I'm back to where I was, basically. I was still pretty weak and couldn't do anything about the slides. There was just no concern. Eventually, I got going on them, and it probably took, my estimate is, I know that I did that slide clear out in 2023. These were a complete mess. Everything was everywhere. You have to imagine 5,000 slides. My room was unbelievably, my room's bad at best of times. On this occasion, it was just ridiculous because, as you'll see from the themes I'm presenting, the themes of his work, the piles that I started, I looked at a slide and said, it's a flower. It's in the flower pile. Oh, that's one of those weird ones. That's in the abstract pile. Oh, that looks like France. Okay, that's in the foreign holidays pile. And literally, the piles just grew. So then I had the problem of sorting the piles out into different days. Eventually, I recognized that there were dates on the slides, and that was the key for organizing them. Using a light box and proper storage, and watching the footage at the same time, I could just look at the date and say, well, oh, and it was a lot more straightforward. I didn't look at the subject. Doing it by subject was really difficult. If you do sort by date, you tend to get the subjects anyway because you get all the holiday ones together. You get and he's doing a session. That was a lot. That was protracted. That was Feb 24, so it's moved on from 2020. And then that's just sorting the slides. I haven't digitized them yet. I haven't taken any photographs. I haven't scanned any. So that scanning process is very painstaking. You've got to get it right, otherwise it's a waste of time. I have a semi-automated system now for doing lots. Obviously, I had to automate it because it was just so many of them. And then I have to say it took until 1st of March 2025 to finally finish the final slide. Albert 2,730. I think I had a beat at that point. It was actually, the flags weren't out. I'd got it done and they'd been digitized. But they still haven't been sorted. You're still going to take 2,700 and say, what the hell do we do now? So that's again where the piles come in, because they're roughly in the, so you're obviously 1963 slides, very different than 1999 slides. And you can start grouping them. This is just an aside slide, really. This is the kit I use for digitizing all my Litherland stuff. For books, I use a proper book scanner. For documents, a high-quality sheet feeder. And for photographs and slides, I use a flatbed Absolute Perfection, 850 Pro. And I also use a Canon D70 with a proper macro lens, very, very good quality lens, to take all the detail off slides, off any photograph. So I mentioned also the subject and date research. This has also been a part of it. I haven't bothered with any subject titles today because it just gets overwhelming. But should I need to know where something is, like this beautiful building here, I didn't know that it was the Fronton des Façades du Belvedere Supérieur. You're practicing.
Say that again.
I'm not saying it again. But the truth is that you can find out where places are through using search image with Google. It just tells you all of the other photographs that people have taken of that. Very useful for understanding things. And then we have what I'm calling now the surviving physical archive. These are the things that you can touch, not the electronic files. This is what they look like. These were some surviving folders. I had actually 2 in my possession when he died and had not returned them. Those survived, plus other various documents I found. And they're all stored in, each one is in batches of 50. Given these HL, History of Litherland, it's now the other way around, it's Litherland History now. But essentially they are in sealed bags, so archival quality bags, and they're stored in a tough box. So they're pretty concentrated, but they're there if anybody wants to go back to them. Same is true for the slides. The only difference with slides is that I bundle them into 50 slides. That's again something I've found that when I'm digitizing them, it's possible to see 50 slides on a screen at once. So if you take that bundle and you digitize them all on this computer, you can show 50 slides on one screen. That's really handy for flicking through batches of slides. So you can, it's all little tips that I've taught as I've gone along. And as you can see, these are in batches of 50, and each batch is called an LPA original. That was originally Litherland Picture Archive, but it's now, as I say, it's all Litherland history now. That was the Litherland pictures. These are Albert's pictures. Our box A, B, C, and D. Again, they've been, creatives, Cotswolds, Scotland. You see, they've fallen into these categories because once they're in those categories, they've got numbers on the slides, so you can put them roughly. Now, not every slide has survived, largely because of that cull. I called it the cull. Because you had 5,000 slides, and there were a lot of duds. That's what every photographer has in their collection. You have, God, what's that? I mean, I was very conservative. I didn't throw anything remotely interesting away or photographically interesting. Even if I couldn't understand it, I just kept it. But obviously there was a lot of tryouts which just didn't work. But I didn't deduplicate or anything like that. So you can see all loose and unclassified, and forming essentially this is A4 size boxes. So there's 2,700 slides there. And that's really what the majority, so the sample, the video which I've got, which will take us through that archive, really is all based on those piles of subjects. That's where those categories come from. They're his preferences on what he liked to photograph. Just say a word about the digital archive. So we've seen the physical archive, the things you can touch, but actually that whole objective was to create an electronic archive. This is also the objective with the Litherland history pictures and the site which I've got. The great point about the digital is that you can take every photograph that we've got, stick it on a disc, and then just copy that disc. Within 5 seconds, somebody else can use it. There's a lot less chance of them being lost and torn and damaged. They don't deteriorate once they've been done, as long as you've got excellent backup, and that's what all this is about. So I take in there's a working copy on on my SSD digital disk, and then I back it up onto a thing called Thunder Bay 8, which is a RAID array, which means that it's very difficult to lose data on there because it's duplicated internally. If a disk is lost, you can still recover it from the internal backup. The idea is resilience, so that resilience to loss, which is the worst thing. And they're also backed up in the cloud. So there's two backups of these slides. People may be familiar with this now, which is the Litherland History member site, which is, I reckon that it was time to start putting them out there so that people could also enjoy photos. Now it's got coming up to 800 members within 2 or 3 months, so it's pretty good. And a lot of engagement in it as well, that's the important thing. The real plan, though, is this Litherland History Archive site, which is like a proper website built for resilience. Facebook is absolutely rubbish for storing photos. You lose them, you use search, you can't find them. There's a lot of deficits in Facebook. And of course, it's a private network. Not a lot of people like joining it, all that kind of stuff. To do it properly, we need a proper website. And again, that's not straightforward. It is actually quite a challenging task to do, to design it properly, but that'll probably be the subject of a future talk of how that's coming along. Essentially everything's stored in 50 serial number. This is in the Litherland History collection. It's extensible. That means that Albert's slideshows, we've got to add to that. That's a fixed collection now. But this, I'm adding anything that comes along about hit. So it gets another LH number. So it could go up to LH 10 million if you want, although there aren't that many. And the crucial thing is that these numbers have got concordance with physical object. So LH 1631, you'll find LH 1631 print in a bag somewhere. If you look at the LH. That's been important to do that, because otherwise you just can't keep up with this stuff. With Albert's collection, the one which we're going to be sampling now, they're grouped into themes, and they're pretty rough. There are some churches, for example, in the British collection, things like that. But that's to be expected. It's not a hard classification. Albert's themes. Remember, these started out from that gargantuan sort that happened about 3 years ago now. I wish I'd taken a photo of my room, actually, because there were literally mountains of slides everywhere. But it was required because you couldn't reclassify them. You had to keep that pile going until it was complete. And then you could put them into boxes. That's where these themes come from. These are all the subjects he was fascinated with, the things that he practiced and, in some cases, perfected. Sacred spaces, churches, obviously stained glass windows, cathedrals. These were his favourite place. Wherever he went, he always went to those places. Home countries is a little travelogue, very old-fashioned in a way, of going to see the far reaches of British Isles, Scotland, Isle of Man, Wales, England, all over the place. The fact is, he used the coach services quite a lot to get around the place. Then we have this weird category, the abstract and tabletop. I was debating whether to put this one in, but I thought, well, actually, they're really of their time. They're kind of very 60s and 70s designs and things, weird photos. So be a bit charitable. They may look a bit odd, but he was looking for something. I think a lot of these did come from the Photographic Society. That's the kind of stuff that those guys got up to. Then we've got 3 themes. I have to put family pictures in. It's a movie you've seen before, but it's important to reflect that Albert's family was very important to him. And there's lots of photos of his mum and dad in there. So not to do it would be a bit wrong. Flora and fauna. He was invested. He was photographing flowers all the time. There was a flower around. Albert would stick a macro lens in front of it, take a picture, preferably with a little butterfly on it. But he did lots of wonderful floral and animal pictures. See, skyscape and landscapes, exactly what it says. Landscapes. In fact, last night I put on a sneak peek. You might have seen that on Litherland History last night, that segment. Continental Adventures. I thought that was a suitable title because clearly in the 60s it was quite an adventure to go on these things. They're very different than Britain at the time, all of these continental places like Vienna and Prague and all over. You name a country and there's probably a few slides in there. I haven't mapped that out where he went yet. I might do a big map and sort of say this year, because you can map it to the year, of course. But clearly it was always a coach trip. It was never flying. It's got long coach trips. And then next one is industry and work. He had a kind of reverence for all things mechanical and people at work. There was really a clear theme coming through of people, especially in Bryant and May. You'll see some Bryant and May shots in there, quite a few of them. And then call it a love affair with Liverpool. The phrase I would use is Albert loved Liverpool like he loved Litherland a lot. You can just see it in the buildings he photographed. I mean, we know these buildings. It's not as if they're world-class photographs, but it just shows he took his time going around the city and observing. He was a great observer of things. And finally, we're going to do his Litherland walkabouts. Again, it would be impossible to talk about Albert's contribution without his mention of his Litherland walkabouts, which give us some of the best photographs of Litherland in the past. This is where it could all go horribly wrong. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start a slideshow, but as a movie. It lasts about 20 minutes, so we'll be well in time. All I want you to do, the only purpose is for you to appreciate the artistry that went into these pieces of work. I know I'm a photographer and I know just how much you have to struggle with a subject to capture it. And it does seem that many of these capture the essence of the subject. That's what I want you to constantly look out for. So as I say, let's hope for the best. Tell me if this music is too loud or too quiet. It has got music. I'm hoping that it will start when we turn this on.
Wonderful church. Liverpool Cathedral, of course. Absolutely majestic picture, that. I think that's Exeter. Of course, Metropolitan Cathedral. I think that's the Anglican as well. It's just a part of it. So this is the first of the stained glass windows. There's hundreds of stained glass window pictures. You could write a book on massive numbers. That's St. David's Cathedral, the roof, just looking straight up. Absolutely beautifully captured. They're not easy to take, those pictures, especially on side film, because you've only got that very narrow exposure you'll have to do. This is a phenomenal picture. Captured that. So you're a guy of colour, pattern. This is what he found in churches and history altogether. That's a similar monster before, but on the other side. Look to be in any guard. I think he was impressed with scale. Obviously he goes to mountain pictures. They're all about scale. That's an incredible picture. I think that's the Queen's Church, and Palmall. His mum. I thought this was St. Philip's, but it isn't. I think it could be St. Mary's. It's just that shape. It's a lovely picture. Bottom of the smooths. It's a fab picture for Christmas. cathedral in town. So we're going to move straight on to the next thing. So these are his little trips around the country in coach. It's the Howarth Street. That's Lichfield Cathedral. Goes further forth. Wonderful. That's Holiday, I think. Scottish town. That goes complete contrast in London. Piccadilly Circus. That's Parbold. Beautiful picture. Coventry Cathedral. It's the new cathedral next week. Castle of Howard. That's on a holiday in Ireland. Wonderful picture of family. That's Pembroke Castle. Again, lovely picture. Lots of boats. He was well into his boat, was Albert. That's Barnstable Marquis. I don't know what was going on there. Sheep, operation by sheep. Museum in York, I think. Technical things, couldn't resist it, you know, engineering and weird people as well. And you see the relationship there, the architecture and the grandeur. Here's the castle. That's Flatford Mill and of course Howarth. Finish your job about. Straight on to the next. These are the weird ones. Well, that's a beautiful still life tabletop. Don't even have one to take. Matches that appear everywhere. All one lens, I think. So patterns in everything now. There's the power of backbone. Lines. No idea what this is. Fractals. They're the abstract ones. Now this is a segment I've shown before, but it was perfect for showing him. See, there's the pram.
Yeah.
He's such a cute little lad. All this is in Oxford Avenue. In the Boy Scouts. He's growing up there now. Yeah. He looks like he's just come down from Oxford, doesn't he?
Yes.
There's the trusty car that took them everywhere in the UK. That's a nice picture of his mum there. So this is where the error is. That it is actually died in 1967. A lot younger than me. She was with Albert then in the house. They still went travelling. Cotswolds and Blackburn. Coffee shop bar. And they grew old today, man. Name's Bram again. So we're going to go through all of them to still get us through. Some wonderful nature pictures. These are challenging to photograph. Get the lighting right, so close, so little depth of field. Look at that, that's perfect. So yeah, I don't think some of these haven't seen the light of day since the 60s. That's the paper wasp. Again, patterns, nature, goes right the way across all the themes. He could not resist the pattern. I think that's an area with colour. You used to do different positions, different aspects, texture, colour. Okay, on to the next section, which I think is this is the one I put on last night on Litherland History. Some spectacular scenes here. It's Lake District. None of these were in digital. These are all obviously 35mm. You didn't have the chance to just look at it and say, "Oh, I need to take that again." These were one shot. Price of film, you had to get it right. That's where all the skill came in. As someone once said, the decisive moment. Make sure you get that decisive moment. And you can tell which one worked. Yeah. Let's pay the art, Harrison Stickle in the Lake District. There's a lot in Scotland, a lot in the Lake District like this. And that's just wonderful. And the last one is absolutely phenomenal. It's just like perfect. Couldn't improve on that. Okay, we're now getting on the coach and we're going around Europe. So you've got to imagine them. There are some pictures of them on coach. And of course, they're on it. There's the Majesty again. It's after that look. That's the Austrian Parliament, Vienna. Seafield, I think, in Tyrol. Somewhere in Italy. I couldn't find where. That's Upagama, with passion players. Yeah. Switzerland, of course. I know where that is, I've forgotten that. Salzburg. That's Innsbruck, they had the Winter Olympics there. Dubrovnik, I think. That's Slovenia. There's the type of bus that we're going on. Like the 58. It was pretty basic. It wasn't luxury like they have today. Is this Malini? Yeah, they were workhorses, alright. Needed filling with water. Julie Andrews just coming over the hill there. That's Scott. This. One is close. And the Atomium in Brussels. I think we're met. There's only a couple more themes to go now. Well, this is his fascination by industry, work, people work. We need to look out for one. Can we go? Taking in Brian's in May. He's got the managers on one side and the staff on the other. This is obviously Brian's in May. Lovely study coming up. Well, there's the managers deep in thought. There's the one. Somebody made a film in Brian's and May, and obviously he's fascinated in the back. So the lock photo and stuff. How behind leads us to a revolution. The Three Sisters, Clarence Scott Outfit. These are all just bits of machinery in Brian's and May. Who wouldn't think the photograph? Albertus. They're all lost now. He has a lot of farming pictures as well. He obviously used to travel up to Libya and set his camera out. I'm the doctor, of course. I think that the stuff they put on the side of the matchbox. Think it is. Very striking picture of the farming village. Matchbox kind of flop. So he was always into graft, you know, people were grafting. Of course, where would we be without puddles? Litherland worker. Great picture. So, we're coming to the end. We've got some Litherland pictures, but this, as I say, I love Liverpool as much as he loves Litherland. These are just some of his Liverpool pictures. Starting with the town hall. Buster and the Tabletop, I think. The day they did the walk through in the tunnel. We need to explain what that one is. Supine banner. Huge triggers. What have we done there? That's in the garden festival. One of his favourite subjects. Got hundreds of pictures of that thing. And of course he absolutely loved the album Doc, didn't he? He would, wouldn't he? Great picture of a FM salesman there. All that's developed now. Municipal. At the Bank of England. Chimneys on top of Bernard through the years. That's on the corner of United Building, I think. It's a wonderful building, isn't it? And of course, that's a mother of it. That's a great picture of people looking out on the head. So the temple. There's the Isle of Man boat. That's the old low buildings, and then we got a new one. Wonderful. Look at all these little people out here in the old tall ship space. And here's the Boeing to get for it. The Asian boat. You love that, the Bank of World War, isn't that great? Once again, during city culture here, I think. Nice pan of the city there. And then with the library going. Okay, final little segment is some of his many photos of Litherland. You go on these walks, you'd start off at Oxford Avenue, of course, with the camera. And there's lots of pictures of Oxford Avenue over the years, if you're interested, to do a history on them. That's the earliest, taken by his dad, from that box room, where his dark room was. That's what it looks like now. I took that one. That's the same in the snow. It's a classic picture of how things have changed. That's one of my favourite pictures in Litherland. It's called the Methodist Hall, just down the street from him. 2 views of it. I think they're waiting for a shower bank. Certainly queuing orderly on the way somewhere. Walking up a bit to School Lane, you'd see the old English martyrs just there. Sadly, that was the end of it. Could have been saved. Talking about could have been saved, that one as well. That's all we've got of it now, a few ridges. Litherland Park is one of his favourite little subjects. There's walk around it quite a lot. There's a lot of photos. We didn't take our house. No. Interestingly, he took all the ones that disappeared. That's been substantially redeveloped now. A lot of that's changed now. It's good. I can't recognise that now. That's gone. Must have been something structural with those because they all went. That one's gone as well. Turning the corner, going up Hatton Hill Road. How many cars there? Lift apart. Dug me all. This captured, an important moment. The destruction of the Beale stage, and this will be talked about in hundreds of years, I beg. And a wonderful panorama right the way across all the shops in the 70s. He did a great Bridge Road walkabout in 1968. That was it. Again, they boarded up then, ready for demolition, really. It's just that's long gone. St. Paul's Church Hall. Let's go there quite a lot. Famous one on Bridge Road, Lift Bridge. That's a classic picture of Lift Bridge. Don't see many like that. And then there's another slide set, which basically he walked the entire length from the White House right the way up to the Netherford, taking photos as he went, and really created a record. Anybody who's old enough recalls and recognizes as something great was lost, such as that. Posted that the other night. The old man. More of a villagey atmosphere to it then. That's a fantastic picture of St. Philip's with the blossom. That's where they started to tear up the place with the subway. Another lovely picture of St. Philip's. Of course, he was a frequent version of Central School. That survived as Hugh Baird for a while. On there, of course, Church Road, which is the biggest triumph of all. And of course, put like that, made like that originally as a design, destroyed. And then he walks back home, goes back to his dark room and develops some pictures. So, that is that. They are Albert's photos. They were the themes, quite a broad range, but not every subject. So he definitely liked focusing on these particular themes and developing real skill in capturing the essence of them. So it's time for a sum-up slide, and I think that I was trying to come up with a quote. I think that he tried to capture his world. He went to a lot of places. He studied things. He studied astronomy, and he saw the world through his camera. But actually, its pictures, the ones that we've got now, the ones that have been digitized, ones that are in the archive, is how I think we can see Albert now. We look the other way, the lens is the other way. You can appreciate the man and the complexities of him and his approach to life, largely through his photograph. That's Albert growing up, middle-aged, getting older, and finally very old. I was infirm. Same guy. I talked to him mainly in this phase. His photography took him back to this phase. Because I was a photographer as well, we used to talk about all kinds of things from the 70s and 60s. So it meant a lot. I put this slide in really for online. That if the music was selected really to suit each theme. That's actually the sources of all of the music. And of course, the most important line, photographs by Albert Howarth. And I end with a slide he used himself, showing of transparencies, the end.